Hey game makers! Welcome to Let's Make a Dating Sims! So I was trying to think of something to do that'd be fun for Valentine's Day, and I thought, let's make a love game! Oh, that sounds terrible. Okay, so, before I begin this, I've never made a dating sims before. I've always wanted to. And I've got... It's February 1st, I've got 14 days to make this. So, as much as I want to do all of this live and on camera, I'm gonna do the best that I can. I just can't always record. So, some of it might end up being time-lapse, but we'll see. I really got no idea. I don't know if I can even do this in 14 days or not. So when I say dating sim, I kind of mean like a visual novel. And the basis of those are usually get with one of the characters by the end of it. In this case, I'll kind of give you an example of how I want to do this. I made a mock-up to make sure everything that I want to do could actually be done to some extent. So, like, I should probably also mention, I've played, like, only a handful of dating sim visual novel type things. And it's been a while since I've played them. So, yeah, I do have an idea of how I want to do this, and I think it's actually going to be really fun, though. So I hope you join me for this adventure, because it is going to be something. So this is just a little mock-up I did to make sure everything would work. We named the player. Yeah, give them a nickname. Playton, sure. Great, Yup, that is great. So in my little mock-up here, I wanted to go over some things that are generally, that I've generally seen in, visual novels and see if I could implement them in RPGMaker. Now, on that note, I know there are dozens of other programs that let you do visual novels, and probably a lot easier than this. The issue is RPGMaker is the one that I know, so it's the one we're using. I also wanted to see how I could actually do it in it without having, like, too much, reliance on plugins and whatnot. Hi, background. That's what I get for waving my mouse around. Anyway, so when I think of visual novels, I think of a couple things here. Let's open a notepad. So things I wanted to implement in this, can I see my screen so I can actually remember what I'm talking about here? Okay. So, for this game, we're going to do character graphics. There we go. I can spell. Oh yeah, I've also got my spell checker on. In that case, I'm just going to use Akira and Zephyr. They're going to be the two optional love interests for Player, who's the protagonist of the story. Player is just Player, that's all you need to know about Player. Player does have a personality, and I've actually got an idea for a title for this game too, based on how I want the story to progress, but I'll get into that in a minute. Back to features, or I guess mechanics. Although, I guess technically those aren't really a mechanic, but, I mean, kinda. Anyway, so I'm going to be using my characters from GMEM2 because I have them available, and I had them in school uniforms already set out for something completely different. So that's what we're using. Let's see, what else? There's... I guess you could count the text box. Text has a T in it. Wow, I can spell. This is already going great. Okay. So, text box. I've already kind of worked this out. In a minute, I'll go over how I'm doing this and how I did that. But... sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. So, outside of the text box, we've also got, at the bottom there, skip. I don't know why I keep wanting to write those in capitals. Skip. Title, log, and save. So these are also mechanics I've already worked out. I really, really wanted to have them as buttons, but if I want the message window to be displayed if I want the message window to be displayed pretty much all the time, I can't do that. I think I can. I actually have an idea of how to do that, and still use, like, the picture binding buttons or the event binding common event thing. There are like a bunch of different plugins I tried to do this, and it just wasn't happening. So everything's key commands at the moment. But if I can work something out, then I'll switch to buttons at some point. But for now, we have skip text, which just skips the text really fast. I'm in an anime. Title, which is just when you hold left and right, just goes straight to the title. No problem, that's really loud. Yes, and that will just reset. A lot of games have a go to title thing. I don't think it's really necessary. Ideally, I'd actually prefer a separate window that you can just bring up that will do everything, which I could do if I was writing it, but I wanted to just use what's available, so we're not gonna do that. Log is just a plugin. Log brings up... Whoops, that save. Yep. A text log, which... I didn't remember, like, I didn't know this was a plugin. I was looking for it a long time ago, and I was, like, so distraught that I wouldn't have one for this. And then I found one. And then I was happy. There is a little bug in it that I've noticed where, I know it's, okay, so it's a Yanfly plugin, and some of the extra codes that Yanfly stuff allows you to use doesn't show up here or doesn't work properly. That's fine. I didn't think wait commands were one of them, but apparently they are. The in-text wait commands still wants to show my value here. But that can just be alleviated by not using that, so that's fine. My little, affection bars here also want to show up through it. And then save. Again, I wanted to be able to save anywhere, which I can, without too much of a problem. This is just the Yanfly save menu. I might switch it to something else. This is just what I threw in to test. Visual novels usually have a lot of different save things, so that's what I wanted to use. There is kind of a thing, though. When you load it, it will load from the next point of text as opposed to the one you're on. I think being able to save anywhere is fine, and you always... Can I load? Yeah, you always have the backlog to kind of look at if you don't know what happened last. So I don't think that's a problem. I think it'll work out just fine. Next, we have the... what I call them affection bars. Let's call them love points. Wait, we need a little heart. Okay. So, in visual novels and dating sims, primarily visual novels that are dating sims, because yes, technically there are ones that aren't, you gain points through the choices that you make throughout the game, which I guess is another thing. Choices! Okay, sure. And you will get points based on your actions or what have you. And once you get high enough hearts, the game will give you good endings or something to that effect. Some games handle them differently depending on what their main objective is. If you've got a giant harem of characters you want to get with, then it's usually handled in more of a routes fashion, where you gotta choose the accurate route to do. In this, I think we're going to go for choices, because I've got an idea for how I want to handle a couple different endings of this game. Because, of course, you've got to have multiple endings, right? So I think it'll work best if I have the two characters and individual heart points. Because there's something I want to do, and I don't want to mention it yet, because I think it'll be really fun. But, so that's that. And I think the choices, as I've mentioned before, which kind of showed up a second ago, this is just going to repeat on me. At the moment, I'm using a plugin to do the cool visual novel style. It's actually, I think, Galv's plugin, and it's actually called the visual novel style plugin. So each of these will do a different result, that's fine. Now, I've got a timer going, and there's actually a reason for this, because there's something I want to implement that doesn't entirely work, and I'm not sure if I can get it to work. So I might have to revise how I'm doing this at the moment. What I was going for was after 5 seconds, you would no longer be able to select the three choices. Instead, it would go to this, which which works, but the player has to manually input something. So if you're still hovering over like choice 1, you can still click choice 1 and have it apply. Now I can retroactively make it not do this, like have it acknowledge that skip is active, but I don't have a good visual indicator unless I put a giant skipped thing on the screen after the fact. Yes, I ran out of time. Anyway, so I think those are pretty much what I'm going for in terms of the mechanics for the game. As far as the story, I think I've mentioned we have player, the protagonist, and Akira and Zephyr. The goal of the game will be to date one of them by the end of it. That's kind of what we're going for here. Now, the two characters here, Akira and Zephyr, are characters from my game, the one I mentioned earlier, the GM series. So, I'm kind of taking some liberties with their personalities here, but I'm not really sure how it's going to work out because I haven't actually written anything, just this little thing to make sure all the features worked. I also noticed that if you try to open the save menu when a choices window, actually if you try to open any scene while the choices window is open, things want to break on you. So I've got some disabler stuff in here. It's not super important. Disabling fast forward so you don't just completely fast forward through the text or through the choice windows. Just little things like that. I'll go more into them as I'm actually going. I'm pretty sure this video is going to turn out to me just explaining my ideas to you and then starting it next time. But I'm trying to go through this as fast as possible because I've only got 14 days to actually work on it. So, the way I'm thinking of doing this, and I hope my tablet actually wants to work with Paint today. Okay, so we have the start of the game, okay, and we have a section here, and then a section here, and this section will actually get to branch into two different sections. Wow, this is the crappiest paint drawing ever. So this will branch into two different outcomes where you can have two different scenes based on your choices, which I don't actually know what they are at this point. Wow, I cannot see this cursor at all. So that'll branch into two different choices. Then the characters will regroup here. And then based on the choices you've made... Actually, I guess there is another branch here. Actually, it's more of a this. Let's just move that down a bit. No, crap. Yeah, look at that. Haven't used Paint in a while. Didn't want to open Photoshop because it lags my computer like crazy to record while using Photoshop now. I don't know why. Windows 10 just hates me. Now, based on your outcomes here and here, go back to this, please. Thank you. Can't see my cursor. There we are. Okay. So based on your actions here and here, the end outcome will be sort of different. It will either be this or this, which, as you can probably guess, is the Akira ending or the Zephyr ending. Oops, that's a 2, Echo, that's a 2. This is a Z, or a Z, or whatever. And there's something, I guess multiple locations in these can lead you to bad endings as well. I think this... I wish I could see this. I'm trying to use my control to actually look at my mouse. This can lead you to a bad end. And I suppose possible options to here and here can lead you to a bad end. There will also be a different scenario, somehow. How do I want to do this? A lot of, I think, dating sims requires some scenario planning. I've thought this out to some extent, but I don't have all the details revised. I just kind of wanted to have a game plan for how I wanted to handle it. Start. Okay, so there will be a third route. It does branch off here to a... Where is my mouse? swear this isn't lining up properly. I'm just crazy, I know. So this will kind of escape to a third route, I think. So that's what we got. This is going to be an intro section. Now, as is typical for dating sims, I've seen a lot of atypical ones that take place in, like, really weird circumstances. But as far as this one goes, I'm gonna be using some really traditional tropes because they're the ones that are most familiar to me. They're in, like, everything and I want to play with them. But I think the vast majority of dating sims I'm aware of take place in, you know, traditional Japanese high school. We're gonna go a little different and go traditional anime high school, cause this isn't gonna make a whole lot of sense, so we'll see how it goes. So this is gonna be a class thing. Then the plot's going to switch to, like, a festival. I don't know if it's gonna be a school festival or, like, some special event. This is going to be a standalone scene. I guess asking out scene? And then these three are going to be a date scene. I'm kind of curious, actually, now that I put this third route here, if anyone's going like, oh, it's gonna be like a triple date scene! I guess you'll have to find out. But that's kind of the path I'm thinking of. Instead of, the player will get to choose separate routes, like the player will be able to choose between here and here, kind of thing. And this section and then this section will all be based on points. This one will be a bit of both, depending. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm gonna just move this over to my second screen, so... you know when you just hit random keys on the keyboard and you already have something named that? Yeah. So, that's pretty much it for what I want to do and how I want to do it. As far as the characters, like I've mentioned, Akira and Zephyr are pretty much just grabbed from my other game and put here with some mild character differences because we're not in a random fantasy world, we're in anime high school. Yeah, that's what this is. Now, the player is a bit more interesting. Player, if you saw from my little thing, that doesn't really establish his personality too well, but whatever, it's just a... I did not realize I had such a peaceful sounding song thing. Whatever, this one's more hypey. So, after this little intro, it's probably gonna be a lot more, laid back. I just wanted to get my plans out of the way so you had an idea of what I actually wanted to do. Player, as I mentioned, is going to be kind of this sarcastic version of me. Essentially, things that go on in my brain, character is going to describe here. Player. I'm just using two different things for the name and the nickname since I don't think there's a code for nickname, and if... Actually, I think there is a code for nickname, but I don't have an input nickname thing, so just using a dummy character is fine. I'm also thinking of having nicknames for the other two characters, but we will see. I'm not sure how well I'll be able to do this on the spot. But let's see. Okay. Just making sure my recordings are still working, because they've been known to not in the past. Okay, so I threw in some of the RPGMaker DLC music. So let's actually pick something for, like, wow, you need to be quieter, because I do not have my volume set accurately right now. Okay, let's do music later and just have my Jewel Beats stuff play. Maybe I'll pick some Jewel Beats songs off camera and throw them in. So this can go off for now. These are the plugins I'm using before we get started. Community Basic is just the thing RM comes with now. I put the game into widescreen I also have Core here to actually put the game into widescreen, because just with Community Basic, it doesn't actually do that unless you're in full screen. As far as the editor version goes, I don't know about the deployed quote-unquote copy. Message Core, I'm pretty much using to set my rows to 5, if you've noticed. I do have a thing with that, where I have to put a wait command between the text, because by default you can only have the 4 message windows, so it wants to add the next one to it, so I am doing that. I just want 5 because of where I want the text to actually show up. That's the only reason we're doing 5 text things. I'm also using a free-to-use font I found online. I'm not sold on it, but it's what we're going with. Galv's visual novel choices. It comes with graphics in the demo. I'm just using those for the time being. I might revamp them. I don't know. We'll see. Skip title is a must for everyone. Everyone needs this plugin. If you don't have this plugin, go get this plugin. Unless you already have another plugin that does it. I think there are a couple of them that have it implemented as a feature. I think I could be wrong. Savecore, we've seen. Galv's variable gauge. It works like this. Not like this. Like this. Not like this. Like, I know where my stuff is. So you put the value of the let's call it the love gauge. You put the max value of the love gauge. I don't know what it's going to be. I have it set to 6 temporarily, but I don't know how many choices I'm actually going to have. But we'll see. And then a variable for any of them that you have up. Because these will probably end up being the same amount of points for each character, I'm just using the one. And then anytime you increase it, you just add however much. To create them, you use this code. You can find it in the demo or in the plugin, and then you just put the graphic names. I think one of these is the current value variable, the max value variable, the location, and an offset. I think is what that is, and then the ID at the front, obviously, of which bar it is. And this is just to hide them because it looks silly having them there all the time if, like, the screen is faded out, because they won't fade out with the screen, right? Okay, so, I guess we could, like, actually get started on this. Oh, one other thing. The backgrounds I'm using in that little thing are actually well, okay, this is my text overlay window. This is just, I have an editable file I made up in Photoshop. This is for when choices are there, so it blocks out all the stuff since you can't use them while the choice window is active. This is just a light. I grabbed these from my other game. They're just gradients. Nothing special. The backgrounds are actually MV default. They're the battle backgrounds. I just threw them in here and layered them on top of each other. They're so excessively big. I did have to increase their width by 15% though, because I didn't want to go and edit all the graphics, and this was way easier to do. And then my character graphics. I'm setting them up. They're just images. It's nothing special like what I'm doing for my game, where I've got voice acting and sync up and animate it. Nothing. Not doing that here. I have them set to center so I can flip them easily, and then they're just at coordinates. Now, I would recommend, if you do your own games and you have your characters set to move around a lot, use variables. It's a lot easier to just increase them and decrease them and not have to worry if you go back and change things. It's just great. For this, I'm not planning on moving them around a whole lot, so I can just use direct designation here. But I definitely recommend placing them via variables. It's just a lot easier and a lot less time consuming. Most of the sound effects I'm using are just MV default at the moment. I'm not sure how much I'll need sound effects in this. We'll see. This could be a sound novel too. Put in some rain and some wind going on, or some cicadas maybe. But I just grabbed XP's jump because it's my favorite sound effect in the universe, and if you've played any of my games, you know I overuse the crap out of it. These are just text codes for the setup of how I'm doing this. I think I might actually change this, but I wanted to kind of get an idea of what I needed to do and think about at the time of doing this kind of thing. Because I didn't want to be like, oh, that's not working, how do I do that? So yeah, I guess we could get started.